Hello everyone, welcome back to this video series on clinical trial programming. In this video, we will see an introduction to US FDA's data standards catalog. In clinical trials, we know that we collect data and we analyze it and we generate some reports and submit to regulatory authorities like FDA. And we have many standards development organizations like CDISC and also HL7 which develop standards. So these standards can be data standards or terminologies to be used in clinical trial data. And each of the standards may have its own different versions of those standards. So what does FDA's data standards catalog do? So it's simply an Excel file in which it lists the data standards and terminologies it supports for use in regulatory submissions. So there can be different standards like STTM, ADAM, define.xml, all of those standards and the different versions of those standards. So at any point in time, so FDA may or may not support all one or more of those standards. So whatever is effective, so will be listed in this data standards catalog. So it will list the data standards and terminologies it supports for use in regulatory submissions. So it is updated frequently, twice or thrice in a year, and so we'll have to follow the latest data standards catalog based on the study start date. So when we talk in terms of support, there are two concepts: the date when it starts supporting a standard or a version of the standard, or the date when it requires for a particular standard to be used. So it lists the start and end date when it starts supporting a particular version of the standard, and it also lists the start and end date when the requirement begins. So what does it mean by when the requirement begin? So if a study is starting on a particular date and if FDA has indicated that the requirement for a particular standard begins, then any study started on or after that date has to use that specific standard unless otherwise specified or discussed with the specific review division within FDA. So we will see some examples of these, like what does it look like when the requirement starts, these things in terms of SGTM, ADAM, and define.xml, and also control terminology. So let us now move to the, so this is a screenshot taken from the FDA's data standard catalog, uh, which was released in December 2023. So here if you take a look at the standard, it says SDTM, it says exchange format is XPT file. So which means all the SDTM datasets you create have to be supported in the form of XPT. So this has been the case since 2015 if you examine here. And the standard development organization which is responsible for this standard called STTM is CDISC. So here we have different implementation guides of SDTM-IG starting from 3.1.1 to the latest 3.4. So if we quickly take a look at SDTM-IG 3.2, it says the date support begins. So it started accepting submissions from 17th August 2015, which are based on IG 3.2. And then if we take a look at the date support ends column, it clearly says, so the support for SDTM IG 3.2 ended in 13th December 2023. So which means, so any study started on or after 13th December 2023 cannot use your SDTM IG 3.2. So here also, if you see the date requirement begins, again, let's see for IG 3.2 itself. So it says the requirement for submission began on 15th March 2018 and 15th March 2019. So there are these footnotes in the actual data standards catalog which says there were few exceptions for few INDs or NDAs, but any studies which started on or after 15th March 2019 must have used SDTM IG 3.2. So if you have a pool of studies which you already had developed using an earlier version of 3.1.3 or 3.1.2, so sponsors can discuss with the review divisions, like if you are developing a drug, you have CDER, and if you are developing a biological, you have a division called CBER, and there is a specific division within FDA which reviews your device data. So if you want to use a different version, even when you are not meeting the conditions specified on this support start and end date and requirement start and end date, so you can discuss with them and still use the previous version, but that has to be discussed a priori, which means you will have to discuss even before submitting on how you will structure the data and then take a decision on that. Similarly, if we look at SDTM, the latest model of SDTM IG, which is 3.4, if you see the date, the support began for submissions of SDTM IG 3.4 is 13th December 2023. So you can start submitting submissions based on IG 3.4 for the studies which started on or after 13 December 2023. But if you take a look at the requirement begins column for the same 3.4 IG, it says 15th March 2025. So any studies which started on or after 15th March 2025 will have to use SDTM IG 3.4. So if we take a look at the column like date support ends or date requirement ends, so there are some fields which have null values, which means so FDA is still supporting or the requirement does not end. So which means so any studies which started on or after 15th March can still continue using 3.3 as well. So if we have requirement end date, so we cannot by default use a particular implementation IG version uh, because the requirement ended. So if you want to use a prior IG even after the requirement date ended, so you'll have to discuss with the review division. So these are some start and end dates of support and also requirement for different SDTM IGs. Now let us take a look at your ADAM IG dates. So Atom version dates. So if we see here for Atom IG 1.1, the date support began was 10th Feb 2017 and it is still continuing. So you can still submit your studies even if you take a look at the requirement ends column. So the official requirement began for 15th March 2020. So which means any study which started on or after this date must have used IG 1.1 and could not use version 1.0 without discussing prior to the review with the prior review division. So it is still continuing to accept submissions based on ADAM IG 1.1. So if we now take a look at the start and end dates for support and requirement start dates for your Adam IG 1.2 and 1.3. It says the support began for Adam IG 1.2 and 1.3 in 18th July 2022, but the actual requirement is beginning on 15th March 2024. So any study which started on or after 15th March 2024 must have to use 1.2 IG or 1.3 IG of Adam. So now let us take a look at the define.xml start and end date requirement. So we have three different versions of define.xml standards, version 1.0, 2.0 and 2.1. So if we take a look at the start and end dates for version 2 and 2.1, so if you see the FDA started accepting define.xml version 2, so from 7th August 2013, but the actual requirement began was on 17th December 2017. So any study which started on or after 2013, July, sorry, 7th August could have used define.xml, but the actual requirement began only in December 17, 2017. So it still started accepting but the requirement began only on 2016 or 17. So there are few exceptions, so we'll have to go through that footnotes, but these are like much earlier, so we don't need to bother much at this point. So if you see the support end and requirement end date is blank for define.xml 2.0, which means teams can still continue submitting define.xml which belongs to version 2.0. And if we take a look at version 2.1 for define.xml, the support began on 7th July 2020 and it is still ongoing, but the requirement began only on 15th March 2023 and the requirement is not rendered here, which means any study which started on or after 15th March can continue using 2.1. So now let us take a look at the note which is there with this abbreviated as 12 here, uh, footnote. So it says this is the footnote for item number which is marked as 12 here. So if a study started before the support end date, the study can continue to use the specified version of the standard. If a study starts after the support ends date, the study can no longer use the specified version of the standard. So sponsor cannot use this version of the standard or terminology after this date. Generally, a waiver process may be available. Sponsors and applicants should consult with their review division. An empty field in this column means that a support end date has not been established, which means it is still continuing to accept a specific version as we don't have the end date listed here in a specific version of the data standards catalog. So the one which I am referring to is version 10.2 of data standards catalog, which is released in December 2023. So let us take a look at the support start and end dates for terminology. So the one which we use in most of the cases is in SDTM submission or ADAM submission is the CDS terminology. So the organization which develops or maintains this terminology is Enterprise Vocabulary Services of National Cancer Institute. And accepted versions are anything after 2011 uh, June 10th or later. So, and the date support began supporting this CDS control terminology is 2011 13th June and the support has not ended. So any version which is on or after 2011 June is still acceptable. And the requirement for the submission actually began in 2017. It started supporting in 2011, but the requirement was enforced only in 2016/2017. So hope this gave you an idea of what FDA data standards catalog is and you will make better use of this. Thank you for watching and keep learning.